Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of December 11th, 2023, Tim Carbone.
Welcome back. We are glad that you're here. Christmas is right around the corner, and if you blink, it'll be 2024. This week we have our interview with Tim Carbone coming up and our top 3 stories of the week. But first, Amanda, how are you doing?
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, I'm in Mexico. I'm at the Dreams and Sapphire property where Strings and Soul just ended a couple days ago. And I'm so glad that I was down here. I think the best part about these festivals, and they're all kind of similar, the sit ins. There were some really incredible sit-ins. Sierra Hull, Lindsay Lou were some of the artists at large, so they popped up in many, many sets of music. And then I think, Kevin, for me, one of the more meaningful parts of the entire 4 days was Yonder Mountain String Band opening the main stage and then closing it. Very meaningful. I think at one point there were 20-something people on stage and just some really fantastic music.
Wow, that's crazy. So, who was the headliner there, or?
It's not really a headliner situation. It's rotating. So you've got bands like Green Sky, Bluegrass, Infamous String Dusters, Leftover Salmon, Railroad Earth, of course Yonder, who are switching up the times that they're playing every day. So most of those have a chance to play what I would consider to be maybe the headlining set or the primetime set, which is around 8 o'clock at night. But there's 3 or 4 sets of music before that and 2 after that.
Very nice. And you said that Railroad Earth was there.
Yes, Railroad Earth, and in a special nod, a very, very good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, Mike Partridge, who's been the sound engineer for Railroad basically since the beginning, is hanging it up. He's actually working at the Capitol Theater now, heading up that team. So that's a couple miles from his house, and he's handing over the reins to another good friend of mine, Joel Rose. And so there was a little changing of the guard in a really thoughtful way during Railroad's set to close out the festival the other day. So really cool.
Very nice. Now, did Railroad had a little hiccup of a couple weeks back? How is everything with that?
Yeah, Todd's voice sounds great. He is doing awesome and, really happy to be here. So you would never know. So whatever therapy or, treatment he was getting, it definitely worked out and he sounded just as good as ever.
Very nice. Very nice. So speaking of Railroad Earth, our interview today happens to be Tim Carbone, which his number just came up and you happen to be down there in Mexico. So
Awesome.
we talked to him, we do some general catching up. He has just released a record with Lenny Kaye of Patti Smith fame, and it has a Christmas song on it. We don't get into that, but we get into the record. He tells the story of how he came to work with Lenny Kaye. Also some about Walter Salas Hamara, who we had an interview with well over a year ago now. We also get into, he's writing a memoir, which who knew?
Oh,
Railroad
yeah.
Earth 25th anniversary is coming up sooner than later, I guess in 25. We got into fly fishing, Buddhism, playing for the Dalai Lama. This is one of the funnest interviews we ever had. And you said, Amanda, during that you knew Tim and I would just hit it off. And we did.
Yes.
Once we started talking, we were just like, I've known you forever, which is one of those fantastic things. So we got that coming up in a little bit. But before we get into that, why don't we jump into the
top 3 stories of the week.
Okay, Kevin, I've got a couple stories for us this week. This first one was new to me. I know you're very well connected to the fish scene. John Fishman's daughter, Ella, has released her first album under the name of Cynthia Ruth. So she's John Fishman's daughter, and it's an 11-track collection. Of course, Fishman is on some of those tracks on drums. She also covers Waiting in the Velvet Sea, and it's mostly acoustic. She's really got a beautiful voice. And, I thought that'd be something to mention in case people out there maybe aren't aware or just haven't had a chance to listen to that album yet.
Why is she using the a pseudonym or assumed name or whatever you call that?
Yeah, I tried to find out, but there really isn't a lot of information about that. She's, of course, always very, very, complimentary and just, speaking so highly of her father. She calls him the best drummer in the world. But I think maybe to some degree it's a way to, I don't know, perhaps get a little bit of independence. I'm not sure. I will say, though, that Trey called it absolutely stunning, a work of art, and saying that he's really proud of her. So, hey, that's not bad, right, for your first album?
No, not at all. I have not heard the album, so I am going to reserve judgment as to what's going on with it. Did you get a chance to listen to it, or did you just come across the article?
I did listen to it, not the entire thing. I was curious about the cover. I wanted to hear that and then just get a general feel for it. She really does have a very, very great voice. It's one of those voices that you would kind of pick out of a crowd. It's just kind of a unique voice. And it seems like the songwriting, it feels very personal. So, considering that this is her first go at it, clearly she's, I'm guessing, grown up with just absorbing a lot of what happens during this process. I will say that there was production, of course, from others who are really talented, Carter Sanders, and then a guitarist named Daniel Yoon, and Colin Dinney was the bassist. And I'm not familiar with their work, so I'm about to go and check out what else they've done.
Now, is this physical media, or is this something that we're only finding on the streaming platforms?
So far I have seen it online. And basically what they said is it's out wherever you get your tunes. So there might be a way to get that in physical form. So far, I've only seen it digitally, though.
Right, on the platforms. Very nice.
Yes, yeah. So I thought that was a cool story, and maybe we'll just continue in the fish theme. Why not? There's always a lot to talk about. We're all familiar with the Mimi Fishman Foundation, but they have just recently added a signed fish Coventry poster to their online auction. Not that many of us would be able to bid on it at this point because it's already, I think, up to about $2,500, and there's about a month left to go. But I just mentioned this because, the Fishman Foundation has been around for such a long time. I don't always think of that just because there's so many nonprofits out there. But they do so much great work. And of course, that poster is highly coveted, signed by all members of the band, by Pollock also. And, of course, Coventry was such a point in time where so many of us, we all thought that was it. And so, just wanted to mention that. And you can check that out, even if you wanted to just take a look at it, of course, on the Fishman, I think it's mimifishman.org. And you've got 31 more days to place a bid if you want.
Now, did you see that Pollock did a poster for a certain band that played Hampton?
I did. What did you think of it?
It was cool. Good for them. A lot of it struck me as strange. Do you want to get into this? Do we want to get down this road?
Let's talk about it, because actually I saw it. I looked at it. I've got it actually up in front of me now too. So
the thing is, okay, so Goose Goes In, if everybody doesn't know, they did their Goosemas show down in Hampton, Virginia. And a lot of, all the old fish people are, not all, but some are, complaining about it. And, all the Goose people are like, leave us alone. We got our own thing. I tweeted that Goose did not own Hampton, but they did put a firm down payment on it. They had Bruce Hornsby come out with them, Do the Way It Is, which is so nice to hear that Tupac Shakur song getting some airplay. And, they did theme sets. It seems like they really embraced it. And, Madison Square Garden is Fish's thing. Like Shoreline was the Grateful Dead's. Every band has a place, and I know that the Dead and Fish and Jerry Band all have storied. The Rolling Stones started their '81 tour in Hampton. I mean, the place is iconic, but they really did try to make it their own. And from everything I've heard, the lot was good. There was no problems with the locals. Everybody loved them. So good for Goose.
Good for them. Yeah. And, I'm with you, Kevin, 100%. And, as you know, I'm someone who has my own very, very, very personal memories and emotions connected to Hampton, like so many of us do. I think the beauty of music is that it should always be moving and changing. And that doesn't mean anything that's happened in the past is less important or less meaningful or great. But you know what? We have to keep trying new things. And I am really happy for everybody that has seen Goose do what they do. It's a cool energy, I think, to watch something really take off like that.
I know. 22, I guess. Mardi Gras 22. I saw them at the 930 Club. They just played Hampton. I mean, that's, less than 2 years later. That's really mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Well, you put in the work and have that talent too, and just dedicated fans, a lot of whom I've heard from personally, but also online. You see quite often. I thought I was too old, or thought I was past the point in my life where I would find a new band and be so excited and fired up. But here I am, and I think that kind of says it all. Yeah, awesome. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about that. Okay, so let's see. Last story of the week is not so much a story, Kevin, in the sense of there's not a lot of breaking news here, but I did just want to mention that the New York Times put out a really great story interview with David Byrne, and it gets into a lot. So I'm not going to try to hit every point here. I want to make sure everyone just knows that it's available. If you don't have a subscription, ask someone who does, because usually you can gift articles, and this one is worth it. Basically, a lot of the interview and the questions focused on, of course, the re-release of Stop Making Sense and trying to understand if Mr. Byrne has any nostalgia for that time period, if the re-release has made him think about things, a little bit differently. And to sum it up, no, he does not feel nostalgic about the release and that emotional connection. He says it's like watching a character for him, and he's removed from it. But also something he said, Kevin, and I'll just mention this real quickly, is that there were some really intentional decisions made on the production side of Stop Making Sense, both audio and video, where he says, we could have really recorded that in almost any era. And so for him, it is not a 1980s thing. It's really timeless. There's no time connected to it. So he just feels a little differently. So it was fascinating, Kevin, and I just wanted to mention this.
So did you get I guess if there's no nostalgia, that's kind of another way of saying that it isn't happening, that they're going to get back together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you come away with is there's this recognition, for, as he says, some older Talking Heads fans who may have gone to see, the original will come away, remembering when they saw the tour, first heard the band, like we all do, right? Which is nice. But he said what's unusual is now you have kids in their 20s and 30s or younger finding their own meaning in it. But at the same time, he doesn't really seem to feel pressure necessarily to maybe want to do anything else with it, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, there we go. So, and you can never say never.
Exactly. And we definitely see that a lot.
Yep.
But he talks about creativity, curiosity, being self-motivated, things that he's learned over the years. And some of it has nothing to do with music per se. And after all of that, right, so I'm maybe painting a picture that seems neutral or maybe even a little bit negative if you want to take it that way. The end of the article is David saying that he still, even with all of that, feels an enchantment about the world and the way things work, whether it's biology or physics, a growing sense that lots of different things in the world are related to one another, and is amazing. So really far ranging. I think he and Tim could have a great chat, actually.
There you go. Yeah. Tim was so fantastic. Now, I did not realize that he was a producer. Do you remember off the top of your head? He has his own studio, right?
Yes. So Low High is the name of that particular outfit. Low High Records. They're an independent record label. It's Jim Brooks, who's like a marketing veteran guy, and then Tim Carbone, of course, who we've been talking about, and a few others. So yeah, they do great work.
And Tim, we're going to get into this interview. He also has another band, a quote unquote what he doesn't want to call the super group, with some other guys. So let's get into the interview, and we'll see you on the other side.
Like, what do you have going on these days? Like, I'd just love to hear about what's exciting for you, because I know between Railroad, High Hawks, Low High, I mean, there's a lot of different things. So,
oh yeah, and I have even way more than that going on right now.
I know.
Yeah. So I just came back from Arkansas, down by Eureka Springs, and I've just finished producing a record for this band called Eureka Strings. Interesting band, multi-generational band, big band, like a 7-piece band, and they have satellite members that come in. So in total, I recorded at one point I had 9 people, and a friend of theirs owns this gigantic log cabin mansion on a hill overlooking Beaver Lake, which is kind of I only found out with like 2 days before we had to go that was actually the lake that the drummer and son of Lotus like drowned in. And in fact, it was right across the lake from where the house was. And I was kind of like, whoa, that's pretty freaky. And but it was great. It was really cool to it was setting up in one giant room, like the room is as big as my house, and so that was cool. So I'll be working on mixing that. The other thing that's really cool is going on. I'm working with I'm making a record with Lenny Kaye from the Patti Smith group. And Lenny Kaye is super famous dude. I don't know if you know who he is, but he played guitar in the Patti Smith group from the
I did I have another podcast called Beautiful Garbage, and one of the episodes is Bad Girls and Sick Boys, and Patti Smith was one of the bad girls.
Oh, nice.
In that episode. So yeah, the whole episode's about Deborah Harry, Patti Smith, and Tina Weymouth. They were the bad girls, and the Sick Boys were the Ramones.
Ha. Well, there you go. So so it's a funny story. A friend of mine was putting on a Christmas benefit this past Christmas, and he asked, because I know Lenny for a bunch of years. It was totally bizarre because I met his wife first, because I was I'm a poll worker, and so I got put into this pretty funky precinct in East Stroudsburg, and then it was me and this woman. And finally at the end, I was like, she's very friendly, and we were talking, and it was, sometimes that job can be, you're there for like 10 hours, and it can be like watching paint dry. So then at the end, I was like, what's your name? I didn't even know. I know her first name, and my name is Kathy Kaye. I said, Kaye, yeah, are you related to Lenny Kaye? She said, oh yeah, he's my husband. So I met her. I met his wife first, and then got introduced to him. And I don't know if you remember or not but Lenny came and sat in with Rare Earth when Todd couldn't make the show because his partner Aaron was having an early delivery of her baby, and so Lenny just stepped in and did Gloria at the end, which was crazy. And it was, our fans were like, who the hell is this old guy? And but yeah, because a lot of people don't know who he is, but he's like one of the most famous freaking rock stars on the planet. Anyway, so I asked him, I called him for my friend, hey, would you want to do this Christmas benefit? And he was like, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. In fact, I just wrote a Christmas song and he sang it to me a cappella over the phone. And I was like, get your ass down to my studio right now. We're going to track this thing. And so that started this whole thing where I was producing the Christmas track. And then next thing you know, he's playing us all these other songs that he's written that haven't been recorded. So me and my buddy Lou Rogai, who I write songs with. And it just kind of morphed into, yeah, let's do a record. So I'm super stoked about that. And then I literally just got asked to go perform with one of my songwriting heroes, Walter Salasumara, from a band called The Silos from the 90s. Big, I love them.
We interviewed him a few months back.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew the two of you would have a lot in common, just in terms of your background. But yeah, that was a great one. That's so awesome, Tim. That's great.
Yeah, well, so I'm going out.
He told this hilarious story about going to see a jam band for the first time, and somebody offered him acid there, and it was pretty hilarious.
That is hilarious. Yeah, Walter's a piece of work, man, and he's such a sweet guy. And I guess I first met him in the late '80s, probably '89 or so, or early on in the South by Southwest world, because I went down there. I did like 9 of those in a row. I showcased at 2 of them. But he used to host the opening night at the Hole in the Wall, and that's where I met him. I think it was '89. It might have been '90, but the memory's a little fuzzy. And then, we've been in contact on and off since then. And I booked him. I booked the Silos at a couple of shows in New Jersey, and but anyway, I went to see him. They're doing the 35th anniversary of Cuba, and so I went to see him up in Woodstock at the Colony, and and he was like, "Hey Tim, well, blah blah blah." We went out and had dinner, and drinks and dinner before the show, and then he just texted me a couple of days ago and was like, "Hey, why don't you come down and play this house concert on Sunday?" Which now I have to learn 20 songs, but okay. And then in Rhode Island in May, I'm going to go up and be the fiddle player in the Silos in Rhode Island at a Silos gig. So
That is awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool.
All right, Kevin, there's so much more. And of course, this is a really fun one for me to go back and listen to just because of personal connections. But before we do that, wanted to make sure everyone out there is checking us out online on social media at All That Jam Pod, allthatjampod.com, of course. YouTube, you've been releasing all of those full interviews, which are such a treat to go back to, and you make it very easy to find, which is great. So, make sure that you're listening to us wherever you get podcasts. I actually heard from a few people here, Kevin, at the festival that they really like the bite-size, sound. I've heard from a few people at the festival here, Kevin, that they really enjoy the fact that we're putting out bite-sized segments versus something that's, several hours long. There's a time for that too, but definitely seems to be something that resonates with our schedules and just the way that we, go about our day. So with that in mind, let's get back into it. This second part of the interview is Tim talking about Railroad Earth, his thoughts on writing a memoir, and I can tell you the stories are endless and amazing. Something that he's been doing for a long time, which is fly fishing, and it's fascinating, and more. So let's get back into that.
I guess, I'm just looking at the time. Are there any other projects or anything that you've got going on that we could share, even if it's farther out? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, what's Railroad Earth look like over the summer? Are they?
Oh, well, we're doing like a combination tour with Leftover Salmon and Yonder Mountain String Band. We're playing like some, amphitheaters and sheds and stuff like that. We're not doing a whole lot of festivals. I think we only have 4 or 5. Usually we're doing like 8 or 9. But we replaced those with these shed tours, which are going to be a lot of fun because all the bands will be, sitting in with each other. And so that's what Railroad Earth is doing for the most part. We're loosely talking about going in the studio in the fall. We haven't really landed on any dates, but the conversation has started. And so I guess the other things that I'm doing are I'm personally going out early because the railroad's doing the hog farm. In I think it's July. I'm drawing a blank. I don't have my calendar right in front of me. But I'm going out early, and my songwriting partners in the contribution. We're gonna set up for a couple of days in a studio and write as many songs as we can in 2 days. Ready, on your mark, set, go. And then I guess the other thing I'm doing, which is a little more long term, but I've been working on through the pandemic, and you might be interested in this, Amanda. Is I've gotten off my ass and I'm writing a book.
Yes.
I'm writing a memoir. I got 67,000 words in already. And I'm not, obviously I'm going to have to do a second draft. I was trying to resist having to do a second draft, but I mean, at this point, I'm 67,000 words in, and I haven't even gotten to Railroad Earth yet.
It's 1988.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm somewhere in like the early to mid 90s, so.
You're one of the best storytellers that I know, and that's going to be an incredible book. You just have in your mind it's going to be a series. There's going to be a couple of them.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I could ask you this because you I believe you'd be someone that I would ask this, and you can tell me what you think. But as I'm reading through them, I have an intro, right, or preamble, and then most of them are just stories, like standalone stories. So I'm like, is this just a collection of short stories, or is this a memoir? What the hell is a memoir, or is it what's the difference? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think it's just whatever form you think it should take, and I love that, because then people can pick it up, they can read something, think about it, but then go to something else, right? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in a particular order. It's whatever would make sense to you from where you're jumping to.
It's not. I've decided to take the same tact a little bit like what Neil Young's book is, and Dylan's Chronicles, which is he's basically going. Both of them are going all over, chronologically skipping around.
Right.
Kind of what I'm thinking of doing, but I'm having a great time writing it. I've discovered that I actually really love to write, and it's just and also I'm fighting. I feel I'm fighting my nemesis here, which is memory. Now's the time, because all I got to say is getting old is not for the faint at heart. Let me tell you.
How many years is Railroad Earth in?
23.
23.
It'll be 23. We're in our 23rd year, I should say.
Cool. So do you have anything you're thinking about the 25th?
Yeah, I'm just hoping to be alive.
I hope I make it there. I mean, usually
expectation setting is very important here,
setting a low bar. I just want to make it to the 25th.
Yeah, well, I've been saying I'm 66 years old, and so I've been basically my current little saying is like, hey, I'm going to give this music business shit another 20 years and see how it goes. What do you think? And that'll take me to 86, and then hey, Vassar was around then.
Oh my God, Del McCoury, Bill Monroe.
Yeah, everybody.
I saw Bill Monroe at Bill Clinton's second inauguration, and he had to be 90, 91 at that point. I mean,
oh yeah,
and he was up there and he just ripped the snot out of that thing.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Well, to me, I'm going to try and stay. I'm doing the best I can to stay as healthy as possible. I walk like 2 or 3 miles a day. I'm going fishing right after this, so I'm going to be out stomping around in a river for.
What you fishing for?
Trout. I'm fly fisherman.
Nice.
And I live in the Poconos here in Pennsylvania, and there's some pretty good streams here. As a matter of fact, some of like dry fly fishing in the late 40s and 50s, when it turned into like flies, when it turned into like actually specifically looking at an insect and trying to specifically create that, and that all it started in the Catskills with Theodore Gordon back in the late 1800s, but just after the Civil War, actually. But like when it really got defined right here on the Broadheads by a guy named Ernie Schreiber back in the late 40s and 50s. So I'm in the midst of like fly fishing history, So, and I kind of
make your own.
I used to. That's a thing, It's a little bit more of a thing than I really want to do.
It's amazing to me that the work, like writing the name on the grain of rice, it's that kind of intricate work,
100%. You're tying these things while looking through a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's very, very interesting. And I mean, I can pretty much tie one fly, which is a hare's ear caddis, which is essentially tying something in the front of the hook to the back, tie that, and so that the things stand out in the back, and that's it.
All right, fly fishing. I love how we ended up talking about fly fishing there. That's the best when the interviews go and turn into things like that. Now, are you going to be in the memoir?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, technically, I was on payroll for a bit, and there are a couple stories about me out there floating around from those early years. So, it's always possible. Without a doubt, Railroad Earth will be a big part of that book, I'm sure. But he has done so many other things that weaving that together in however he wants to do that, or even like those separate chapters, it's going to be a really great read.
It is. It's going to be fantastic. So this week we did things a little differently because of Amanda being out of the country there. And yesterday we released what normally would have come out today, and that it's DJ Brownie, Mark Brownstein. We talked to him about being a DJ, but while we had him, I had to ask about what the hell Disco Biscuits set lists mean. And he got into that with us. So look for that if you hadn't caught that yesterday. On Wednesday, tomorrow, we're going to have Jordan Fairless from Spafford talking about new gear. Brian Moss got a new guitar. Jordan has new bass, so we get into some of that. And Thursday, we have Sugar Nova, their origin story. And this is Luke Miller from Lotus. And we've had Jesse on a couple weeks ago. They both have solo bands, so we both brought them in to talk about that. Friday, we have Magic Beans coming back. Scott talking about some work they've been doing in the studio. Saturday, we have Litz on looping and improvisation, which is going to be fantastic. And then on Sunday, we catch up with Space Bacon's Kevin Legal about after show they have coming up after Fish in a Madison Square Garden and some stuff that they have going on next year. So make sure that you subscribe and like and all that and check that out. This last clip we're going to get into is all about Buddhism and Tim ending up doing a show one night in America and 2 days later ending up playing for the Dalai Lama, which is a whirlwind fantastic story. So let's check that out and we'll see you on the other side.
Oh man. I had read something once and it was something like the Zen of fishing or something like that. And we haven't even, and I want to be cognizant of the time, but we haven't even really talked about too much about your connection to Buddhism and practice, and everything like that. But is there anything you would want to share? Because we do like to chat with people about their overall kind of foundational philosophies of life, what drives them. I'm
a Buddhist, and I came to Buddhism in an odd way. I was playing. I got hired to do sound at a club, and I got a call out of nowhere the day I was supposed to go by a friend of mine who was like, "Hey, you're doing sound for us. Why don't you bring your fiddle?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really, I'm doing sound," and I was kind of tired of people asking me to just come play for free. And so I asked him, I said, "Well, is there any bread? I'll play the whole set with you, And he was like, "No, we don't have any money." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll just do the sound." Then, of course, the night before, I'd left my fiddle and gig bag in between my kitchen and dining room because I was so tired the night before. So the one time in my life, literally the only time I ever took, usually I take the fiddle in the gig bag and put it in its place in my office, go to bed. But I was just like, I just dumped it there. So the next day I get this call and I basically say, no, I'm not going to give my fiddle. But as I'm leaving to go to the gig, I see my fiddle in the little doorway between the kitchen and the dining room. And I was like, fuck it. I brought it. And I sat in on the last song. And it just so happened that the guy that was playing bass was a sub because the bass player had gotten sick. So this guy was playing from charts. He's from New York and I never met him before. And so at the end, the guy goes, hey man, really love you playing. You want to go to India? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm playing a band called the Dharma Bums, and we're going to play the Dalai Lama's World Festival of Sacred Music in Bangalore, India, and we're looking for a soloist. And then I said, okay, what's the bread? And he's like, well, there's no bread, but and you actually have to pay your own flight to get there. But once you're there, you'll have an incredible experience. And I was like, so I went home and I told my wife this, and I was like, I don't know, I got these gigs, I'm going to start production on a record. And she was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're going to tell us story about like those gigs or the record you produced, or like you went to India to play for the Dalai Lama? And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I went. 23 hours later on his flight from hell, I show up in India like completely whacked out from the time changes crushes you, man. You're going across like 4 time zones, and then I'm there. I'm learning the songs that night in a hotel room, and I go out and playing in front of 3,000 people in India. One of those people is the Dalai Lama. And then after that, we go to play Delhi, another part of the festival, and we get word from his secretary that he'd like to have the Dharma Bums come out to Dharamsala if we could to play for his staff in his house. We're like, what the? So we hired a car. We re-upped our visas, and we just hired a car and drove us out to Dharamsala, 12 hours, close to Punjab. And we played for the Dalai Lama in his house. I mean, there he is. And so I spent 2 weeks in Dharamsala, completely immersed in Buddhism, because the Dharamsala, McLeod Ganj, which is up the mountain above Dharamsala, is a completely Tibetan town in the Himalayas in India. And I was never so moved, and I was never so enveloped with spirituality. And that was it. That's what did it for me. And I have a picture of me playing with the Dalai Lama. Hey, I'll find it. I can show it to you. And
Love that.
I mean, we're not playing with him, but I was essentially standing next to him.
That's so fantastic.
Oh, it is pretty. Here we go. How do I go? There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, wow. So cool. So that's not the current Dalai Lama, right? Doesn't the Dalai Lama change every few years, or?
Oh, no. That's the current. This is the 14th Dalai Lama.
Okay.
And he's been the Dalai Lama since the 1950s.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Yeah, so
I didn't know how that
works.
worked.
There are 3 major schools in the Tibetan Buddhist religion, and the Dalai Lama is the head of one of them. And then they have the Karmapa is the head of another one, and the Panchen Lama is the head of the third. The Panchen Lama was, as soon as the Dalai Lama named the new Panchen Lama when the former Panchen Lama died, and they have to go around and find. He has agents that go all over the world, essentially, but mostly Tibet and India, looking for the reincarnated personage of so they'll bring personal possessions of the Panchen Lama, and they'll place him in front of a baby, and they'll see how the baby reacts. And so they found this one that was obviously went right for all the stuff and knew how to work all the things, and they were like, okay, you're the one. No sooner did they do that, Chinese government kidnapped them and killed them, and they installed their own Panchen Lama. So the third house of Tibetan Buddhism is now occupied by a Chinese plant.
Oh.
And so that's how it's done. So when the Dalai Lama will pass away, his next youngest, who is his student, which is the Karmapa, his agents will find the new personage and who is, because it's all a lineage that you're reincarnated and so that's a thumbnail sketch of how it works.
I love that. And I have to say, one thing I've always really respected is that you are both so immersed there, but also yourself authentically, and that all those things can happen at the same time. You're also fully living in the Northeast, right? And that's its own kind of culture.
Yep.
But that all those things work. And I've always really kind of found that to be pretty amazing.
Oh, thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, it's practice. I know we've talked about that a little bit before, but it's just so nice to kind of hear all of that in connection with the work that you do and how you kind of bring that with you, into everything.
Yeah, and then going to India also introduced me to, because it was a group of musicians from all around the world. So I heard music and interacted with the Bowls of Bengal at a jam session in the middle of the woods. And these are the iconoclastic musicians and poets that renounce the world. They travel the trains of Calcutta, playing for alms, and it was just the most insane, amazing experience. And this singer who, like, when you hear him sing, it makes your heart soar. And he comes over and he points at me to start the next jam. And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And here I am just making it up as I go along under a giant banyan tree in the woods in India. Like, who knew that crazy shit was going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Awesome, Kevin. Yes, really excited for the timing on our interview this week with Tim. I know I was chatting earlier about my week here at Strings and Soul, but you got to see Lamp this past week, and I wasn't able to catch them on this tour. Do you want to share a little bit about how that was?
Oh, it was fantastic. Got to go to the Atlantis, which is the new club in DC attached to the 930 Club. My youngest actually saw Foo Fighters there on the opening night, which just boggled my mind standing in there. 250 people tops, maybe. Lamp was fantastic. Natalie Brooke and Infinity Tribe opened up, which I didn't realize. So I got to see Natalie, got to see Gator from Pigeons. Lamp was fantastic. Also, Kevin from Royal Potato was there, who gave me a similar glowing review about the bite-sized content there, which we love. But Lamp was fantastic. You heard some like MMW with Schofield shades. You heard some Meters, some of their own stuff. There was the Trey influences, obviously. There's the Dead influences from J-Rad. Just a great musical gumbo there. And I would suggest in the summer, when next summer comes up, they'll probably be popping up places. You should put that on your list to check out. We got anything else this week, Amanda?
You know what? I don't think so. I'll be headed back to Colorado in a couple of days, get my feet under me, and then it's all about shows leading up to New Year's. And I'm still trying to figure out my New Year's plans, so maybe by next week I'll have it settled.
I will be watching from the couch.
That's likely for me too.
I'm doing the after show reviews there. So with that, I'm going to leave you with stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.